I'm going to read the title of the video before we watch it. We always watch Jubilees, okay? This one is called, Do Trans Athletes Have an Unfair Advantage? Question mark. Trans versus cis athletes, middle ground.
Up for 13 years, and now I am a fitness coach.
Okay, let's reset this. Okay, yeah, I mean, I didn't know they were going to present the people.
Even with hormones. So the argument that you hear most of the time is against trans women. So does that mean that you're okay with trans men having that disadvantage?
Chat, be nice.
Hi, my name is Howard. I've been a swimmer for 13 years and currently I'm on the UCLA triathlon team.
My name's Jing and I've been swimming for 11 years.
Hi, I'm Lexi. I've been playing indoor volleyball for 7 years. I've been playing beach volleyball for 3 years.
My name is Afton. I play women's flat track roller derby, and I've been playing since the end of 2018.
My name is Mac Beggs. I'm a wrestler. I've been in combat sports for 8 years.
My name is Sydney. I played tennis growing up for 13 years, and now I am a fitness coach.
Trans athletes have an unfair advantage. Step forward if you agree.
When you first think about like transgender athletes, I guess the first thing you think about is, well, biologically, transition usually happens after puberty, right? So if this biologically male athlete goes through puberty, he gets like better bone structure, he has all these skills that he enhances, all these muscle that he puts on, and then he transitions. Yes, your testosterone levels go down, but you're always just gonna have that like things that you've gone through like during puberty that you have after you've transitioned. So I feel like there's always gonna be that.
Isn't there more to that too? Isn't it breathing a fucking lung stuff like lung capacity or whatnot, and some other, there's other stuff, right?
I think it's dependent on the gender that they are transitioning to. For example, trans women do have somewhat of an advantage. Biological men are naturally born with higher bone density and larger lung capacity and a larger heart, and that's not something that can necessarily be changed with hormones. Of course, this isn't the same for trans men athletes.
For me, it's just on average, guys are typically a little bit stronger, a little bit larger, a little bit taller. So depending on the sport especially, it can give them a large advantage when you're looking at something like that. When it's something like swimming, having that ability to be a little bit larger lung capacity will overall affect that.
Can I have the disagreeer step forward?
Among...
Yes, before this gets out of control, okay? It's just that there's usually a recurring argument that's gonna say, yeah, but you're a male, right? And you say you're strong. Would you win in a battle against this person or that? Yeah, so you're wrong. I don't think that picking like data outliers and going like, cherry picking helps anybody here. I think it's just not a good
cisgender
argument.
Men and cisgender women. There are naturally...
Okay, hold on. Let me back this up.
Cisgender men. Among cisgender men and cisgender women, there are naturally differences in their anatomy, in their hormonal levels, in their height, bone structure, all that stuff. Like any cisgender woman compared to another might have a different body type. Yeah. Some women are naturally very strong. If you take the advantage, which I think in most cases is the hormones, and if you compare the blood work and you're just looking at that, if they're on the same level, in my opinion, there just isn't an advantage, because when you grow up playing sports, some people are good at sports, some people aren't.
The problem I see with this argument is that there's a large group of people that no matter what I do in a sport will always automatically assume that I have an advantage. But they're not taking into account hours that I put into practice, hours that I put into weightlifting to become a better athlete. Roller derby is probably 90+% cis women. I get my ass handed to me. Like, yes, I am tall, and I can see that can be an advantage in some sports, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that I have an advantage.
Oh yeah. What we usually hear in the news and politics and stuff is about trans women just because they're in so much prominence because they are winning. I can't remember what her name is right now, but she was a powerlifter. She is a powerlifter. I think she went to Tokyo Olympics and she's transgender.
Okay, yeah, listen, guys, listen. I think the argument lacked structure, and even though it could be correct, I think it wasn't voiced the correct way, and it's
the news and politics and stuff is about trans women just because they're in so much prominence because they are winning. I can't remember what her name is right now, but she was a powerlifter. She is a powerlifter. I think she went to Tokyo Olympics and she's transgender. And they're winning by a large amount of weight.
Okay, so the reason why I didn't agree with the argument of the other guy, right, is that what he says does make sense, right? What he says does make sense. On average, yes, yeah, average against average, sure. And then, that woman will be is overall very stronger than others, and oh wow, cool. But
so much prominence.
Listen, it wasn't intentional. Okay, and then, don't worry, it's okay. And then the problem would be when you talk about competing. I think that's what the topic of the video is. It's athletes. Therefore, the athletes are competing, and in competition, it's always a min-maxing, maximizing. It's always being the best at what you do. People win by inches. People win by milliseconds. Dude, thousandths of a second. It's always maximized, right? And I think that when it comes down to that, having even an advantage, which is, you would be above average or you would be a little bit high. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the basis of the argument, is that it's a little bit OP.
Because they are winning. I can't remember what her name is right now, but she was a power.
When it comes down to the very smallest detail, the very smallest thing, the thing that could be the difference between the winning and losing in competition and min-maxing would be that V2 max or lung capacity or bone thing. That small thing will be the difference, and I think that's what the basis of the argument comes from. Not that I agree or disagree. I'm just saying that's what the basis of the argument comes from.
Powerlifter. She is a powerlifter. I think she went to Tokyo Olympics and she's transgender. And they're winning by a large amount of weight.
If you truly believe that trans women have an advantage, even with hormones, then that means you truly believe that trans men have a disadvantage, even with hormones. So the argument that you hear most of the time is against trans women. Yeah. So does that mean that you're okay with trans men having that disadvantage?
When I was going through high school, I wrestled against females. I had to suppress both my hormones in my body, and I was still able to beat the men too, with my levels low. And I cut 15 pounds a week. That was crazy.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. The body is like a shell, and what we do every single day in the practices and the life lessons that we get, living 40 years on this earth. We just try to live life the best we can.
Yeah.
Trans athletes should have a separate category in certain sports.
I don't want to say that they should be in a completely different category just because socially and legally, yes, they are that gender that they transition to, and putting them in another category just seems, from hindsight, it seems wrong. But as an athlete, in the sporting world, it just does seem a little bit unfair if you classify them under the same group, I guess.
Yeah, I think that there definitely are some sports where your physical ability makes a much larger impact on the sport itself. Wrestling would be one of them, swimming, track, something like that. But if you look at NASCAR as a sport, I believe that anyone can then go and do that sort of sport because that's more of a technique. If you look at other sports like golf requires a lot of technique and a lot of strength. Plus, video games is now starting to make a massive rise. So all of those could definitely have both genders in it with no problem. For swimming especially, if I were to decide that I would like to transition and then start...
Yeah, says that. What if with a blind transphobia? I don't think there's any transphobia here, dude. I think everybody's chilling. Relax, man. These are opinions. Sometimes people have opinions that are bad or not bad based on ignorance or lack of education or whatever. And I think they're there to have a sit down, have a talk, and debunk, ask questions, and get answers. And I think you should reward people that are putting themselves out there to learn more and be better instead of shutting them down because you're upset. Chill out.
All of the hormone therapy for a year or so, then obviously I would probably lose some muscle mass and I would slow down in my swimming, but I don't know if that slowdown would necessarily be enough to make it fair for the cis females that I'd be competing up against.
The danger of it is that you're possibly outing somebody. In America alone, there's several places that it's still extremely dangerous to be an open transgender person. To say that possibly outing somebody. In America alone, there's several places that it's still extremely dangerous to be an open transgender person. To say that you can't perform unless you're in this group, there's just a lot of safety reasons for that individual that it's not good. Second thing, where does the line draw? You're saying swimming, and you had mentioned earlier that like height was an advantage. Did I go through puberty as a male? Yes. But in order to say that I have an advantage because I was born with testosterone is the equivalent of saying that, oh, I went to this gym one time and I lifted and I had a protein shake, so I should never have to take a protein shake again because it's in my body. And the medicine I'm taking stops that testosterone. I don't have that anymore. Like my entire body, my entire mind, my entire way of...
Okay, this argument can be debunked in every possible scientific measure ever.
Thinking is different because of the medicine I'm on.
Are we going to start making categories for cis athletes? Okay, you're in a category if you're 5'9" and above, 5'7" to 5'9", 5'5" to 5'7", weights, like all those things. It's like exactly where is the line drawn?
I mean, they do have weight categories.
Well, yeah, for certain sports, of course. But
wait, some of the things can be reversed or can't come back, correct? Some of the things that people quantify as advantages when gained can't go back. Is this a reasonable statement that is scientific or not? Correct.
But I mean, I think just generally, every person is different. And like you're saying, like the cis women that were getting cut because they're naturally, more athletic to some standard that's set. It's like...
Or even the varying levels of testosterone.
Exactly.
Oh, you're in this box, so now you're in this league.
Yeah.
I wasn't by any chance trying to discriminate against them and try and put
them
in their
No,
own category.
I don't think so.
In that,
I think when it comes to stuff like bones or lungs, or I mean, I would assume at this point even height, that it would be hard to go back and really shave that advantage off of that is explained here,
way, it was more just by a performance standpoint. We already do separate everyone into their own different levels. You don't have Olympic athletes coming and competing at state club levels.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose of trying to become a better athlete then?
If they're trying to work up to a goal, I'm not entirely sure.
So if you're good enough, you're going to be singled out and have to go. There's no proof of any trans athlete that is #1 in any category right now.
Yeah, that's because I think they're being held back so much by just like the media and everything that you don't get to see their chance to shine in that sense.
What would you guys say to like transgender people who transitioned before puberty?
In that instance, I think I would take a step back and kind of look at it more at like my own argument, like it was a scientifically based on like puberty and stuff. So I would like consider like that would be different, but my mindset just coming into this, I mean, I think that most people go through transitioning like after puberty, or it's like encouraged to?
common.
Yeah.
For me, it's more if they end up just fitting the category, regardless if they do it before puberty or after puberty. If they have the right amount of testosterone, they did all the right testing all beforehand, then why not?
No,
then
there's no fact checking. These aren't like, I don't think these are all like this is like a discussion. It's not like top qualified, insane juicers of all.
You don't even need to separate them. They might as well just compete as a trans athlete.
Hormone testing is fair.
I can't even think about that. I don't know what that is, to be honest. I mean, I know what it means, but I don't know how it's done and its
Like the Olympics
implications.
test, college level tests. I know, like in Texas, at my high school level, the UIL organization, they tested, and it's to keep everybody safe. And I think it's okay to test for hormone levels, and if that's the ultimate, conversation here is that we're looking in people for hormone levels as a competition, then why separate men and women? Why are we talking about men and women? We just strictly talk about hormone levels then.
Yeah. So there is varying levels of testosterone blockers that you can be on. I chose to be on one of the higher ones, but I can guarantee you that someone like me is going to get less of a chance to be cut than a cis female, because my hormones will stay the same, whereas a cis is going to be all over the place depending on all sorts of variables.
Yeah.
I personally think that the hormone testing is really important, and just coming from like a fitness perspective, like fitness, bodybuilding, like that sort of athletics, for me, I take a lot of pride in the fact that my testosterone levels are within the normal range of a cisgender male. Obviously, performance enhancers, right, steroids, extra testosterone, all those things are thrown around among cisgender men in the fitness world to, enhance our performance, get bigger, all that sort of thing. And for me, being able to say, like, no, I am within the normal range of a cisgender man. The muscle I'm putting on, I'm naturally putting on. I don't have an advantage over anybody else that's in that normal range. So I think for me, like, it's just really important because I'm like proud of that. And I think if you just assume that a trans person has an advantage because they're taking testosterone, it's kind of like, well, what about cis men that take testosterone to get bigger and that sort of thing? So.
Hey.
How you doing, man?
Testing for hormones is fine. The issue is what you're going to do with that, because as I said earlier, it's really hard to put someone in a box because there's always averages here and there for male and female, but especially when you start making your way up in the competition pool, those norms go out the window, and it then gets even more difficult to write legislation on what a male can compete in and what a female can compete in for if their hormone levels are outside of this said box.
I'm fine as a trans athlete being tested. If I need to prove to the world that I'm the better athlete at the end of the day, go ahead and take my medical information. I don't care. I'm just trying to live my truth. That's all I'm trying to do.
A cis female that's competing in a high level of track might have a normal male testosterone, so now are you going to kick them out because now their testosterone levels are too high? And that's where legislation can get really difficult to write.
I am treated fairly by my fellow athletes.
I joined roller derby only 4 months after I decided to transition and get onto hormones. Everyone from the beginning was very accepting. Roller derby is almost too accepting from my experience, because I forgot how bad the real world can be sometimes. Not everyone is going to be, but my personal experience has been...
It's Chad who told me this word last time I asked, derby. Who said it's when the cars are smashing into each other. So it's like that, but on the rollerblades?
Very positive.
Growing up, in my club, I trained with my brother, and we were kind of in the distance group. So it was mostly guys there, and they never really saw me as like she's a girl, They just saw me as another competitor, and it was always just fun, racing, and it just made me grow up love being in the sporting world and being competitive with everyone. So yeah.
I definitely get a lot of hate online, but I've never personally gotten any issues. Everyone that's in the gym is just trying to get better for the most part. Obviously, that kind of communal idea is really helpful as far as me not getting so much hate.
Lonely times.
In high school, when I came out like prominently, everybody knew that I was trans, and there was a coach that exploited me in a lawsuit to try to ban me in high school. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Wow.
I was on hormone blockers, and it was suppressing my estrogen and testosterone. And even though everybody knew who I was, when it came to like after junior high, when he did that, it was so aggressive. Parents would scream from the stands that they wanted to hurt me. As being a trans man and just in my life in general, my family doesn't come from much, and we work very hard. And I'm like the first generation to try to become something. So, I mean, the haters.
I will for you, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sports should be gender neutral.
Your body's a vessel. It shouldn't matter whether you're male or female, because I feel like sports in general is growing. Especially there's this like little girl in wrestling. She wrestled in the junior division in wrestling and nationals in the 106-pound division. And she kicked all the guys' asses.
Yeah.
I was like, go for you. So I feel like as the sport's growing, as we're evolving as a society, and
That's
we're
a
being
little
very
bit. That's a little bit the argument I said earlier.
that it should get to the point if we're talking about gender-neutral bathrooms, why can't we talk about gender-neutral sports?
I actually rode and showed equestrian for 10 years, and I was like one of two men at the time. And then there are other roller derby leagues that are co-ed, and they work fine. Like women are going up against men, and they're bashing each other, and they're like going at it. There's a lot of things, and I feel like sports are one of these things where it's like it has to be this or it has to be that. The same as gender. It has to be this or
I don't think you can compare roller derby to some of the other sports for a lot of reasons.
It has to be that, and it's not.
For me, the issue that I would start seeing with this is when we start looking at scholarships. And for college,
Guys, it's not. This isn't a hit anything. I'm asking a question, okay? Let's say take a thing like swimming. So one of the races or whatever. You take one of the results for men and women. What does it look like? Is it like really close in timings or whatever? Or is it like equal, or is it like one is like rolling? Is it like... Okay. Jesus Christ, man. It's massive difference, okay? So if you were to mix it all in one pot, I mean, wouldn't that mean that you wouldn't ever get any... You know? Right? Does that make sense?
college level, if you start combining the sports by gender, then the scholarships are always given to the top athletes. What happens to the females that now need that scholarship necessarily to go to college, but now you've just all thrown them into one category? It all of a sudden breaks that whole opportunity for them to maybe even go to college, because now they've been training to be able to provide for themselves in college. And now, since it's all one level playing field, maybe they can beat the males, but on average, they probably won't be able to, especially depending on the sport.
Well, trans athletes aren't even getting scholarships either. I'm a two-time state champion in high school, didn't get a scholarship. I just now been able to get my scholarship 3 years into being on a male team.
Yeah, but we're talking like hypothetically, in the perfect world, if sports was gender neutral.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, like it's all hypothetical.
Yeah.
Everything's hypothetical in a sense because we don't have enough analytical data.
I feel as though making all sports gender neutral in that way, there is still some biological benefits to being born a man versus being born a female.
I just can't get over the fact that there are going to be all these very obvious differences, not advantages, but just differences in if we had gender neutral sports.
It's not going to be a co-ed team versus an all-male team. It's going to be a co-ed team versus a co-ed team. So
but the problem is that it's not always team. it's just that this person is relating a lot to data outliers, thing like a derby or team. I don't think it's about team. I think it's about just individuals.
Team versus an all-male team. It's going to be a co-ed team versus a co-ed team. So I feel like there would still be strategy that would have to be played into it.
I'm thinking more like individually.
Yeah, individual. And I could see like where you're coming from that. And you mentioned wrestling earlier. Just the whole combat sport community in general does have a long way to go. Definitely not completely supportive of trans athletes, but in a sense of like when I've noticed in just like studying of how like female athletes are and male athletes are, the best like MMA female athletes, cis, have male training partners, and most of the time like they're kicking their ass unless like they're training or unless they have somebody that's better than them to push them, and then that's just making them a better athlete.
In my opinion, like kids are extremely accepting. I have 2 gorgeous kids, and it's so cool to have them play on a playground and explain to their new friends who I am, and like watch them do that. And their kids, like their friends will be like, oh, okay. You know, but you talk to an adult and they're like, you know, because you have this instilled, like what you were saying, this instilled education from the time you were born.
This is the chat with the type
that has basically said that, no, this is wrong. You have to have this group, you have to have this group, you have to have this group. Like, I do talk about it a lot with people.
Okay,
but I have to understand that it's not my responsibility to educate everyone. Like, I have to be able to cross that line where it's like, mentally, I can't do it anymore. Like, I need to step back for a little bit. But like you said, like, ask questions. Like, if you're genuine, as long as I know it's not malicious, ask a question. Don't freaking ask me about my genitals. Like, that's none of your freaking business.
Be respectful.
I just want to know, like, have you guys ever had, like, you were talking about your scholarship. Do you guys feel like you have less opportunity in the sense of like competitions and like, scholarships just because you guys are trans?
When COVID started, roller derby since then has not gotten back together. So I lost my sport, which was something that was like really kept my brain in focus and like centered me. So I got into powerlifting. I lift because I enjoy it, but I don't even try and compete just because people are gonna like I don't want the backlash from it. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's gotten for me to that point a little bit. A couple of years ago, it was like all too much, and it took my coach was fortunate and supported me through like my academic journey, and he was like, if you feel like you can't do this anymore, like as long as you got good grades, like, and you know, when we're being asked like in high school, like when we're like gonna be competing on a high level, you know, the first thing that comes out of a recruiter or a recruiter's mouth is what are your grades, not how good you are.
I mean, I think I just learned a lot. Like, I loved hearing all of y'all stories, and I feel sad that you guys like feel oppressed sometimes and don't even try. You know.
I hope this educates people.
Yeah.
I know. Middle ground, like yes.
Wait, educate? Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, in some aspects, I just feel like I don't fully agree with some of the things that they said. I mean, on both sides, and I think some of the things that were said were objectively wrong and quantifiably wrong. So it's kind of like I don't want to say educate because then that'd be like, you know. Wow, guys, that was a good video. Let's expand. I mean, some things are. If you see something wrong, I mean, you're not getting educated. You're like almost like de-learning. So that's not how I would put it, but yeah.